Generally, animated runs on the JavaScript side. However, that means that if there is a lot of JavaScript processing happening, that your animations may not run at 60 FPS. However, recently, they've added the ability to run some animations on the native side, including transforms and opacity. However, things like background color and anything that runs through a layout, so absolute positioning or width and height, will not be able to run using the native driver. So let's do a comparison of using the native driver versus not using the native driver. So here we have our animation, and we're not using the native driver. We have it commented out. So when we press on it, we'll translate to 300, and we'll jump back to 0 with the set value. And then we can enable our use native driver, save that, and refresh, trigger our animation again. And it's basically the exact same animation without really anything different. However, if we remove our use native driver and we paste some code in, this set timeout will basically trigger 500 milliseconds into our animation, and we'll just do a loop. So we will block our JavaScript thread. So with our animated running on the JavaScript side, this will block it from being able to do any of the animations. So if we refresh this and run it, we can see that we get stuck, and then we'll jump back at some point once this is actually completed. However, if we flip on our use native driver, refresh, we can see that this loop is still here and is still run. However, our animation will actually continue to run throughout the entire loop because it is running on the native side. This also works with Spring. If we remove our duration and pass in Spring here, refresh and trigger our animation, we can see that our Spring animation ran on the native side because we still have our while blocking loop. There's one other option that use native driver works on, and that is animated event when it is passed into a scroll view. So let's switch over to our command line and do a git reset --hard, and then check out scroll native. If we take a look at our code, we can see that we don't have any animation that we are triggering, but we are passing an animated event into our on scroll that takes the Y content offset and passes it into this.state animation. Typically, you would not define a second parameter to the animated event, but you can see that we have use native driver being passed in as the second argument. And the other thing to note is that we would typically say scroll event throttle 16, and that's if it's running on the JavaScript side so that we're notified every 16 milliseconds that a scroll event has happened. However, in the case of animated event with a use native driver, we want to specify 1 so we can capture as many events as we possibly can. So here we have our interpolation from 1 to 0 so we can pass it into our opacity. And we've just set our background color to a tomato red color. If we refresh this and we scroll, we can see that our opacity is changing and it's running on the native side.